The night 9 people ran into the snow and no one knows why. They found the tent first, half buried in snow, collapsed, silent. But the strangest part wasn't the location. It was the damage. The tent had been cut open, not from the outside, from the inside. And outside, in the snow, were footprints, bare feet, socks, some shoes, leading away from shelter, into the freezing dark, as if the people inside had panicked and ran. Tonight, we're exploring one of the most unsettling, unsolved cases in modern history. The Dyatlov Pass Incident. A real expedition, real people, a real investigation, and a mystery that still doesn't feel human. In January of 1959, a group of experienced hikers set out into the Ural Mountains in the Soviet Union. Most of them were young adults. Many were students or recent graduates. They weren't reckless amateurs. They were trained. They knew winter. They knew how to survive. Their goal was to reach a mountain area known as Otorten. The leader of the group was Igor Dyatlov, and over time, this tragedy would be named after him. The expedition started with 10 members, but one turned back early due to health issues. That decision saved his life. The remaining 9 continued into the mountains, and that's where the story becomes something else. Because they never came back. Their last campsite was set up on the slope of a mountain, a place exposed to wind, cold, open. It wasn't the safest location, but experienced hikers sometimes make difficult choices based on conditions, time, and visibility. They were keeping a journal, taking photographs, documenting their progress, and based on the evidence, they settled in for the night. Nothing in their notes suggested a crisis. No warning, no fear, just routine. Then, something happened. Something sudden enough that 9 people abandoned their tent in the middle of the night, in sub-zero temperatures, without proper clothing, without supplies, without a plan. When the group failed to return, search teams were sent out. Eventually, the tent was found, and it didn't look like a normal emergency exit. It looked like panic. The tent was damaged, and it appeared to have been cut open from the inside. Footprints led away from the campsite. And what those footprints suggested is one of the most chilling details. Some of them were barefoot. Some wore only socks. Some had one shoe, as if they left in seconds, as if they believed staying inside the tent was more dangerous than the storm outside. Not far from the tent, searchers found the first bodies, near a tree, signs that a fire had been made, but the cold was stronger. Over time, the remaining bodies were discovered in different locations, scattered across the snow. Some looked like they had tried to return to the tent. Others were farther away, and some were found later, buried deeper. What happened to them was not a single simple event. It looked like multiple decisions made under extreme fear. This is where Dyatlov Pass becomes more than a tragic survival story. Because several of the hikers had injuries that didn't match the scene. Some injuries were described as severe. Crushed ribs, major trauma, the kind of damage you'd expect from a car crash, not a winter hike. And yet, there were no obvious signs of a violent struggle with another person, no clear evidence of an attack, no clear explanation for why they fled. Some reports also describe unusual details, like missing soft tissue in some cases, which became part of the legend surrounding the incident. But it's important to say this clearly. This was a real tragedy involving real people. And the way the story has been repeated online has sometimes blurred facts with speculation. So we're going to stay grounded. The confirmed reality is terrifying enough. 9 experienced hikers left shelter in extreme cold and didn't survive. and the evidence suggests something triggered sudden fear. Over the decades, many explanations have been proposed. Some are realistic, some are extreme, and some are pure folklore. Let's go through the most common ones and what makes each one compelling. Theory 1. Avalanche or snow slab. One leading explanation is that a type of avalanche, possibly a snow slab, threatened the tent. A slab avalanche can happen suddenly. It can create the sound and pressure of danger even if it doesn't bury everything. If the hikers believed the slope was collapsing, cutting the tent and escaping quickly could make sense. But there's debate because the tent wasn't found deeply buried the way people imagine an avalanche scene. Still, this theory has gained traction because it explains sudden panic, fleeing the tent, disorientation in darkness, fatal exposure. Theory 2. Katabatic winds/extreme weather panic. Another explanation involves sudden extreme wind events. Some winds can create terrifying sound. They can knock people off balance. They can make it feel like the world is collapsing around you. In that kind of chaos, even trained people can make desperate choices. Theory 3. Infrasound. Some have suggested infrasound, low-frequency sound waves, could have triggered panic or distress. This idea is controversial, but it's often mentioned because infrasound has been linked to anxiety-like effects in some contexts. Theory 4. Military testing. Because this happened in the Soviet Union during a time of secrecy, some have speculated about military involvement, but speculation isn't proof, and there's no definitive public evidence that a weapons test caused the event. Theory 5. The mythic explanations. And then there are the stories that became internet legend. A creature, a paranormal presence, something not human. But here's the thing. Dyatlov Pass doesn't need monsters to be terrifying. Because the scariest part is this. Something caused 9 people to choose freezing darkness over shelter, and we still don't know what. For years, the case was officially left with a vague conclusion that the hikers died due to a compelling natural force, a phrase that sounds like an answer, but explains almost nothing. More recently, modern investigations and analyses have leaned toward natural explanations, like avalanche-related events. But even today, the case remains famous because the details feel incomplete. Not because people want to believe something impossible, but because the evidence creates a question that won't settle. Why did they run? Dyatlov Pass is one of those stories that doesn't leave you. Because it's not just the cold. It's not just the injuries, it's the human moment inside the mystery. A group of people in a tent, in the mountains, in the dark, suddenly convinced that staying was death. So they fled, and the snow swallowed the rest. If you want more mysteries like this, subscribe to Echoes Unknown. And tell me, what do you think made them run? Because whatever it was, they seemed to believe it was already inside the tent with them.